Hey kids, do you want to master your camera, understand composition, rock Photoshop, and have a lot of fun doing photography? Me too! It's Professional Photography Tips. My name is Josh Cripps, and you can find me on Instagram and Facebook here at Joshua Cripps Photography. Today we're doing another critique session where I'm going to look at a couple of photos to help me illustrate a really important point about composition. Now, before we begin, a number of people have been commenting that they want to improve their post-processing skills, and just wanted to let you guys know that on my website I have over 6 hours of Photoshop tutorials available for you to download. Everything from basic Photoshop, making adjustments, working with layers and masks, dealing with raw files, all the way up to advanced Photoshop, creating amazingly detailed selections, blending exposures, all kinds of really cool advanced topics. I even have some walkthroughs where I show you my exact step-by-step process as I take one of my own images from the raw file through to the final image. So they're not expensive. You can find those here on my website, and hopefully that will help you learn some Photoshop. I'll link to these again at the end of this video. Okay, so in our last few videos here on Pro Photo Tips, we talked about a really important point in composition, which is fill the frame with what you like. And there's a tutorial video that you can watch, and there's also a critique video where I took a couple of photos that illustrated that exact point. Fill the frame with what you like, and the next step to that idea is that you then have to remove the things that you don't like from your photo, and in other words, remove distractions. And that's exactly what I'm going to talk about today. I've got 2 photos that are going to help me illustrate those points, so let's dive in. The first image is this very cool shot from Roger New. Thanks for letting me use this shot, Roger. Now he's got this great reflection of this sort of futuristic looking city here. I mean, look at this. How cool to be promenading up here on this walkway. It looks really nice. He's got a great reflection, nice warm golden hour afternoon light. Now, technically speaking, this image looks pretty good. It's exposed pretty well. There's one obvious, hot spot over here, which is just where the sun was blasting right against this building. There's not really anything you can do about that except maybe wait a little bit longer for it to change position. But sharpness-wise, exposure-wise, detail-wise, everything looks really pretty good. Now, he's done something that works very effectively when you're dealing with reflections, which is, a lot of times you'll hear photographers talk about the rule of thirds. Well, with reflections, you can get away with the rule of halves, which he's done very nicely here. He's divided the photo exactly in half, and he's got the same amount of space pretty much on top as he does on the bottom. Now, the other thing that he's done is he's got this, this shrubbery down here on the bottom. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It can provide a framing element, or it can provide a foreground element to help create a sense of depth in the photo. So that can be very, very effective. However, the only problem with what's going on here is that the main point of interest as I see it in the photo is this reflection. And what you've got is this plant in various places extending up into the reflection here and here. Here it stops, it breaks up the reflection down here. So in this particular case, I'd say that the plant is more of a distraction than it is a proper framing or foreground subject. So what you could do, Roger, is you see how the foliage it peaks here and then it kind of dips down like this and goes back up. Well, what you could do is if you take a small step to your right, you can see that this building, whatever this crazy building is, kind of follows that same U shape. And if you were to take a step to your right, what you'd have is you'd be able to shoot that building through that U-shaped depression, and it would fit in that little area perfectly. So in that case, it might enhance the framing of that. But in this case, unfortunately, since it impinges on the reflection, it's more of a distraction. So that would be my major suggestion here, would be to either just take a small step forward so you could get your camera past all this foliage, or if you could just raise your camera up a bit higher so that you could get above it and get a more clean reflection. I think that would help simplify the image, and really draw attention just to the reflection. One other small point that catches my eye, just this isn't related to removing distraction, but just would help the photo in general, is this building right here is being cut off on the edge of the frame. So I would say if you maybe panned over a little bit more in the field, or panned in this way a little bit so that the edge of your frame actually stops more like here, that way you don't have that building being cut off. Now, ideally, what I'd probably like to see is, I'm a big fan of symmetry, and that doesn't necessarily have to mean a perfect mirror image. It can mean a lot of things, but you see how you kind of have all this skyline happening, and then it drops down here, and it's sort of got this whole area here, which is relatively flat. And so if you kind of abstractly look at what the rough shape of this composition is like, it's fairly flat, then it rises up, then it peaks here, then it starts to go back down. But you can see it never gets back down to that flat point before it exits the frame. So what I would love to see is, I don't know what the rest of this city looks like or if it's even possible, but maybe if you widened your frame to a point where, let's see here, if it was something like this, depending on what the rest of this city is looking like, maybe the average skyline could come back down to the river level, and then you'd have a flat bit again, where you'd have the exact same amount of space of flat bit on the right side as you do on the left side. And that sort of balance is what I mean when I'm talking about symmetry. You have this flat bit over here balancing some flat bit over here. So I hope that makes sense. Otherwise, this looks pretty good. Like I said, remove that distraction, step forward, get up above it, and try to balance out the composition on the left and right, and I think you'd have something looking pretty darn great. All right, thanks a lot, Roger. Nice job with there. Now, next I'm going to shoot onto this absolutely gorgeous photo by, oh boy, I really apologize if I'm butchering your name here, Guillaume Chapelle. I'm used to speak a little French, but I'm a little rusty, and so anyway, apologize, Guillaume, if that's not how you say your name. Please let me know so I can correct it next time. Okay, so he's got this really gorgeous image here, right? I mean, this thing is beautiful. It's got a great atmosphere. It's got a great feel, mood, and color. And he's actually done something that is extremely difficult to do, which is he's created a nice photo in a forest. In my personal opinion, forests are the most difficult kind of landscapes to shoot well because they are extremely chaotic. They're visually just a mass of craziness. And so anytime you can create a nice, simple shot in a forest, you've done a great job. And here he's succeeded in a number of ways. One, he's found a bunch of repeating patterns, right? The verticality of the trunks just over and over. That really, really helps reinforce the simplicity in the image. And the other thing that's going on is because he's got this mist kind of here in the background, or fog, or whatever it is that the light is shining through, as the forest drops away from us, it gets less and less visible, which means that you don't have a ton of stuff in the background which is distracting from this cool stuff here in the foreground. Now, this photo succeeds in a couple of other ways that I just want to point out to everybody because this is really important stuff. Now, it may look like this is just casually shot, but it's actually done very well. If you look at, I mentioned that rule of thirds earlier, I'm going to bring it up here again. I think it's one of the most powerful rules in photography. He's got the horizon or the forest floor here just about on the bottom third. Now, in any photo, people are going to look at two things in general, whatever's in focus and whatever is bright. So in this case, he's got a very bright point here where the sun is shining through the forest. And where he's placed that, as you can see, is almost exactly on the upper third. But not only that, but it's on the left third of the frame too. So you have this very dominant trunk on the left third with that intersection point where that bright point. So this is very, let me just draw on that other third so you can kind of see. Now obviously it's not exactly the rule of thirds, but it's very close and it's very effective because of that. So great job overall with that composition, Guillaume. I'm going to say it 16 different ways and hopefully I'll get it right by the end. So I just wanted to point that out to everybody because this is a very effective composition in this manner. So, oops, let me get back over here and delete all that chicken scratch. So what do I think could maybe help improve this? One, again, the theme of today is removing distractions. Now, you can see that back here, he's got this very nice, pristine, sort of duffy forest floor. And up here in the front, there's a bunch of branches laying around. So what I could potentially suggest is that you literally, the next time you're out here, these look like there's not that many of them and they're probably dead and light, is physically grab these things and move them out of your frame. And that way you can get that same simple, just kind of leafy forest floor like you've got here in the background. That would help remove some of this visual sort of distraction that's going down here and help simplify it with the rest of the frame. One other thing is that I know you mentioned in your description of the photo that you used luminosity masks to blend a couple of exposures to deal with these bright highlights back here. And I think that's a great idea. It will really help. Now, it may be, this is totally a personal choice, but I look at this and I think maybe the highlights are still a little bit too bright. And what I find happening is that my eyes are immediately drawn to this extremely bright part here, you know, and that doesn't give them enough time to wander through the rest of the frame, which is really, really beautiful. In fact, this atmosphere down here, I think, is actually the most beautiful part of the frame, this beautiful beams coming through the forest giving you this great mood. So even though this composition is set up very well, I almost think that this extremely bright part is a distraction in and of itself. So what can you do to fix that? One, you could do a little more Photoshop. You could maybe, if you have another exposure, blend in an even darker exposure to bring in those highlights a little bit more. If you don't have that, what I did is I basically, instead of, these are almost pure white, I basically just created this solid color layer here. That I just grabbed a color from the photo and I just overlaid that solid color over the image. And then I used something called blend if, which is too complicated to get to in this short video, but basically it blends it in to the brightest spots. So instead of having it be pure white in those areas, it basically turned it from white to this sort of tannish color, brought down the brightness a little bit, and this is what I use this curve layer for. That's the actual color that I blended in, and then I just brightened it up to try to match the brightness. So just to take it from white to kind of blend it in mood-wise with the rest of the photo. So that's one thing you could do. The other thing that you could do is think about this photo in a different aspect ratio. Like I said, I love what's going on down here. This to me is maybe the most beautiful part of the image. And so I wonder if you bring this in a little bit, something like that, now you have a totally different looking frame, I know, and it doesn't exaggerate the verticalness of the trunks, which is unfortunate to lose that. But what it does do is it totally isolates this part of the image, which is so beautiful and so atmospheric, and gives it a really nice feel. So think about that as a possibility, and it also helps remove some of that distraction down there. So anyway, that's pretty much it, you guys. I hope you found that useful as something to think about whenever you're doing photography, is fill that frame with what you like, and the next step is remove distractions. Cool, so that is the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, I would be absolutely honored if you subscribe to this channel and share the video with your friends. If you want a chance for your photo to be critiqued in a Pro Photo Tips video, you can join our group on Facebook. There's a link in the video description down below. I am also starting an assignment. If you join my newsletter, I'll be sending out bi-monthly assignments that you can go out, you can take. It's like photography homework, so you can improve your skills by following the assignments. So jump on the newsletter. There's another link in the description down below. And as I mentioned, if you want to improve your Photoshop, check out these tutorials on my website. There's over 6 hours of in-depth Photoshop instruction with images included with the tutorials, so you can edit along with the video. Everything is explained in simple, understandable, detailed ways. Everything from making adjustments, using layers and masks, working with raw files, to advanced topics, creating killer selections for super fine-tuned editing, blending exposures very, very easily. A lot of different techniques to do that. Or like I said, you can follow my Photoshop walkthroughs and see exactly how I edit my own images, how I use burning and dodging, how I use layer blending, how I use all kinds of stuff to get the final look that I do. Until next time, you guys, have fun and happy shooting.